The man sitting across from her hadn't touched his water, hadn't glanced at the menu, and when the waiter came by for the third time, he simply said he wasn't hungry with a voice like silk over stone. Luna Brennan shifted in her seat, trying not to stare too obviously at the pale stranger her best friend had insisted she meet. The restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy. Couples leaning into candlelight, the clink of silverware against porcelain, laughter rippling through the warm air. But at their corner table, something felt suspended, caught between moments like a held breath. "You should order something," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "The pasta here is supposed to be amazing." His eyes lifted to hers and Luna felt her stomach flip. They were the strangest shade of silver gray she'd ever seen, luminous in the low light, framed by lashes so pale they were almost white. His hair fell to his shoulders in waves the color of fresh snow, and his skin looked like marble, smooth and impossibly pristine. He was beautiful in a way that made her uncomfortable, like staring at a painting in a museum that seemed to watch you back. "I appreciate the recommendation," he said, his accent carrying traces of something old, something she couldn't quite place. "But I rarely eat in public. Dietary restrictions?" Luna asked, reaching for her wine glass just to have something to do with her hands. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Something like that," the waiter returned, hovering with forced patience. Luna ordered the linguine and another glass of wine, painfully aware of how awkward this must look. When they were alone again, she leaned back and studied him more carefully. He wore a black suit that looked expensive, tailored perfectly to his lean frame. No jewelry except a ring on his right hand, a dark stone set in silver that caught the light. "So Petra didn't tell me much about you," Luna said, which was a lie. Petra had told her almost nothing, just texted an address and time with a string of cryptic emojis. "What do you do?" "I manage estates," he said carefully. "Historical properties, restoration and preservation." "That sounds interesting." "It has its moments." He tilted his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You're a teacher." It wasn't a question. "Third grade. How did you know?" "You have that look about you, patient, kind." His voice dropped lower. "Trusting." Something in the way he said that last word sent a chill down her spine. Luna set down her wineglass, suddenly very aware that she knew nothing about this man, not even his full name. Petra had just called him P in her text. "Is that a bad thing?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "In this world, it can be dangerous. Are you trying to scare me on a first date?" His expression shifted, something like regret flickering across those perfect features. "No, forgive me. I've been told I can be intense." "A little," Luna admitted, but she smiled to soften it. "Look, if you're not into this, we can just call it a night. No hard feelings, no." The word came out sharp, almost urgent. He seemed to catch himself, and when he spoke again, his voice was controlled. "I've waited a very long time for this evening. I don't wish to waste it." Luna didn't know what to say to that. Before she could respond, her food arrived, steam rising from the plate of pasta in delicate spirals. She picked up her fork, suddenly ravenous despite the strange of the situation. "You're not going to watch me eat, are you?" she asked. "Because that's definitely weird. I apologize. I'll try to be less observant." But his eyes never left her face. Luna took a bite, the flavors rich and satisfying, and tried to figure out what was happening here. This was possibly the strangest date she'd ever been on, and she'd once gone out with a guy who brought his emotional support ferret to a movie theater. Yet something kept her in her seat, some magnetic pull she couldn't quite name. He was strange, yes, but there was something else underneath that, a loneliness that echoed in the spaces between his words. "Can I at least know your full name?" she asked after a few minutes of eating. "Or is that classified information?" He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, "Phosphoros Erebus." Luna blinked. "That's unique. It's very old family name?" "Yes, my family is extensive, and quite particular about certain traditions." "Let me guess. You're the black sheep?" Something flickered in his eyes that might have been amusement. "Not exactly. More like the shepherd." Before Luna could ask what that meant, the restaurant lights flickered. Just once, but enough to make several diners look up nervously. Phosphoros went very still, his head turning toward the entrance with predatory focus. "What is it?" Luna asked. "Nothing, perhaps a storm coming." But his voice had gone flat, all the careful warmth draining out of it. Luna followed his gaze and saw a woman standing near the hostess station. She was tall, willowy, with the same pale hair and skin as Phosphoros. She wore a long black coat despite the mild October weather, and when her eyes swept the restaurant, Luna felt a shock of recognition even though she'd never seen this woman before. Those same silver-gray eyes, ancient and knowing, the woman's gaze locked onto their table. She smiled and Luna's blood went cold. "Friend of yours?" Luna asked quietly. "No." Phosphoros stood smoothly, placing himself between Luna and the entrance. We need to leave now. What? I haven't even finished now. His hand was on her elbow, gentle but insistent. He pulled out a wallet and dropped several bills on the table without counting them. Please, Luna, trust me. She didn't know why she did. Maybe it was the urgency in his voice, or the way his body had gone taut as a drawn bowstring. Maybe it was the way that woman was gliding toward them through the restaurant, her smile never wavering, diners seeming to unconsciously lean away as she passed. Luna grabbed her purse and let Phosphoros guide her toward the back of the restaurant. They slipped through the kitchen, ignoring the startled shouts of the chef, and burst out into the alley behind the building. The October air hit her like a slap, cold and sharp. My car is 2 blocks that way, Luna gasped, pointing. Too far. Come with me. Phosphoros kept his hand on her arm, leading her deeper into the maze of alleys. Behind them, Luna heard the kitchen door crash open. You can't run forever, my king, a woman's voice called, musical and mocking. And you certainly can't hide what you are. Not from me. Not from any of us. My king? Luna's mind reeled. Phosphoros pulled her around a corner, then another, moving with such fluid grace that she struggled to keep up in her heels. Finally, he stopped beside a sleek black car that looked like it cost more than her annual salary. He opened the passenger door and practically pushed her inside. Buckle up, he said, sliding into the driver's seat. The engine purred to life, and they were moving before Luna could catch her breath. She twisted in her seat, looking back, but the alley was empty. No woman in black, no pursuit. What the hell was that? Luna demanded. Who was she, and did she just call you king? Phosphoros's hands were tight on the steering wheel, his knuckles white against his pale skin. I owe you an explanation, you think, but not here, not yet. First, I need to make sure you're safe. Safe from what? From her? From you? Luna's hand moved to the door handle. Let me out. Please. The word was quiet, almost broken. Give me 1 hour. Let me explain everything. And then, if you wish to leave, I'll take you anywhere you want to go, I swear it. Luna stared at his profile, this impossible beautiful stranger who had somehow upended her entire evening. Every instinct screamed at her to demand he stop the car immediately. But that same pull from earlier tugged at her, stronger now, undeniable. 1 hour, she said finally. And you better have a damn good explanation. They drove in silence through the city, away from the bustling downtown and into older neighborhoods where the buildings leaned together like conspirators. Finally, Phosphoros turned down a narrow street and pulled up to a massive iron gate. He pressed a button on his sun visor, and the gate swung open soundlessly. The driveway curved through manicured gardens, everything precisely maintained despite the late season. The house at the end made Luna's breath catch. It wasn't a house at all, but a manor, all Gothic arches and stone facades, looking like it had been transplanted directly from some European countryside. You live here? Luna asked faintly. For the past 70 years, yes. She turned to stare at him. That's not funny. I wasn't joking. He parked in front of the entrance and came around to open her door. Please, come inside. You'll be safe here. Luna stepped out, her heels crunching on the gravel drive. Up close, the manor was even more imposing, windows like dark eyes watching their approach. The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a man in an impeccable suit, his hair silver white, his skin pale as milk. Your Majesty, the man said with a slight bow. We weren't expecting you to return with company. Circumstances changed, Theron. Is the library prepared? Always, sire. Luna followed them inside, too stunned to protest. The interior was exactly what she might have expected. Soaring ceilings, dark wood paneling, art that looked museum quality on every wall. Candles burned in sconces despite the modern track lighting, creating pools of warm light in the vast space. Phosphoros led her down a corridor lined with portraits. Luna couldn't help but notice that many of the faces shared similar features. Pale hair, pale skin, those luminous eyes. And in several of the older paintings she could swear she recognized Phosphoros himself. Dressed in period clothing spanning centuries, the library was enormous, walls lined floor to ceiling with books. A fire crackled in an ornate fireplace, and leather chairs were arranged in a comfortable cluster nearby. Phosphoros gestured for her to sit, but Luna remained standing. Talk, she said. Now. He moved to a sideboard and poured something amber into a crystal glass. Would you like? I want answers? Starting with why that woman called you king, and why you look exactly like people in paintings that have to be hundreds of years old. Phosphoros downed the drink in one swallow and turned to face her. In the firelight he looked almost ethereal, something not quite real. Because they are me. The oldest is from 1743. Luna laughed, but it sounded hollow even to her own ears. Right, and I'm secretly a dragon. You're not, but I am a vampire, he said it calmly, matter-of-factly, as if he'd just told her his favorite color. And not just any vampire. I am Phosphoros Erebus, king of the North American Covenant, and I have been waiting for you for over 300 years. The room tilted. Luna grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. This is insane. You're insane. I know how it sounds. He took a step toward her, then stopped when she flinched back. Luna, please, let me show you. Let me prove it. Prove that you're a vampire. What are you going to do, bite me? No, never without your permission. His voice was fierce. I would never harm you. Then how he didn't let her finish. In a movement too fast for her eyes to track, he was suddenly across the room by the far bookshelf, then back in front of her, then by the window. Finally, he stood before her again, not even breathing hard. Luna's legs gave out. She sank into the chair, her mind struggling to process what she'd just seen. That's not possible. It is. I am. Phosphoros knelt before her, bringing himself to eye level. I know this is overwhelming. Believe me, I've considered 1,000 different ways to tell you, and none of them seemed right. Tell me what? Luna whispered. Why me? What makes me so special that as she could barely say it, a vampire king has been waiting for me. His hand moved to brush a strand of hair from her face, then stopped inches away, as if he didn't dare touch her. 327 years ago I was dying. Not from age. Vampires don't age past the point of turning, but from a wound inflicted with a blessed blade. As I lay there, convinced my immortal life was ending, I had a vision. A woman with dark hair and green eyes, a smile that could light up the darkness, a heart pure enough to see past what I am. You. That's impossible. I'm 26. I wasn't even born. I know. I've waited lifetimes for you to exist. I've seen the world change, watched humans invent and destroy and reinvent themselves, and through it all I've searched. I've looked into the face of every dark-haired woman I've encountered, hoping to see you. And tonight, when your friend Petra, who happens to be the daughter of one of my oldest allies, told me she knew someone who might be my match, I allowed myself to hope. Luna's head was spinning. None of this made sense. Vampires weren't real. They were stories, myths, Halloween costumes. Yet here she sat in a gothic manor with a man, a creature who had just moved faster than humanly possible, who didn't eat, who looked like he'd stepped out of an old master painting. The woman at the restaurant, Luna said slowly. She's a vampire too. Seraphine, yes. She's one of the European dignitaries, here to challenge my rule. She would love nothing more than to discover a weakness she could exploit. His jaw tightened. If she realizes what you mean to me, what do I mean to you? You don't even know me. I know I've been half alive for centuries. I know that when I saw you sitting at that table tonight, it was the first time in 300 years that I've felt anything approaching hope. I know that the thought of Seraphine or any of my enemies hurting you makes me want to burn the world down. His eyes blazed with intensity. I know it's too much, too soon. You're human. You deserve a normal life with someone who can give you everything I can't. Daylight, mortality, simplicity. And if you want that, I'll let you go. I'll have your memory of tonight erased, and you'll never have to think about me again. You can do that? Erase memories? I can. I won't unless you ask me to. Luna stared at him, this impossible being with his impossible claims. Her rational mind insisted she should be running, screaming, calling the police. But something deeper, something she didn't have words for, kept her rooted in place. The woman at the restaurant could have hurt me, Luna said. But you got me out. You protected me. Always. For as long as you'll let me. And if I say I need time, space to think about all this? Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. Then I'll give you that. But please let me keep you safe while you decide. Seraphine knows I left with you. She'll be looking. Why would she want to hurt me if she doesn't know what I mean to you? Because hurting humans I've shown interest in would still humiliate me, still weaken my position. He stood, moving to the fireplace and staring into the flames. The vampire world is built on power and perception. Any sign of weakness can be fatal. Luna processed this, trying to slot it into the worldview she'd held just hours ago. So you're saying there's a whole society of vampires? Here in the city, here, everywhere. We've existed alongside humanity for millennia. We have laws, territories, hierarchies. I rule this territory, which encompasses most of North America. But there are other kings and queens, other territories. And not all of them are pleased with how I've chosen to govern. How do you govern with restraint? I don't allow indiscriminate killing. Humans who are fed from must be either willing or compelled to forget afterward unharmed. No children, no innocents. Those who break these laws face severe punishment. He glanced back at her. Many of the older vampires consider me soft. They remember when humans were simply food, nothing more. They think I've been weakened by too much time among mortals. Have you? Perhaps. Or perhaps I've simply remembered what it was like to be human. To be vulnerable. His voice softened. To hope for connection that means something more than an eternity alone. Luna stood, her legs steadier now, and moved toward him. She stopped a few feet away, studying his profile in the firelight. He was beautiful, there was no denying that, but it was an alien beauty. Something carved from ice and starlight rather than born of flesh and blood. "If I'm the woman from your vision," Luna said carefully, "what does that mean? What happens now? That's entirely up to you." He turned to face her fully. "The vision didn't come with instructions. I don't know if you're meant to be my companion, my salvation, or simply a reminder of what I can never truly have. I only know that seeing you tonight felt like breathing after 3 centuries of drowning." Luna's heart ached at the loneliness in those words. She thought of her small apartment, her ordinary life, her third-grade students with their gap-toothed smiles and endless questions. She thought of her parents, her friends, Sunday brunch and movie nights, and the comfortable predictability of her days. Then she looked at Phosphoros, at this impossible creature who claimed to have waited lifetimes for her, and felt something shift inside her chest. It was terrifying, it was insane, it was also the most alive she'd felt in years. "I need to know more," Luna said finally. "About you, about your world, about what it would mean if we—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Hope flickered in his eyes. "Ask me anything. The sunlight thing, is that real?" "Painfully so. Direct sunlight will burn us, eventually destroy us if we're exposed long enough. We can tolerate brief periods, especially at dawn or dusk, but it's agonizing. So you just never go out during the day. Essentially, we've adapted. Most vampires are nocturnal by necessity. It's one of the prices of immortality." Luna chewed her lip, thinking, "The blood thing? We need it to survive. Human blood is best, though we can subsist on animal blood if necessary. It's the life force we require, the thing that keeps us from degrading into monsters." He watched her carefully. "I know how that sounds, how it makes you see me. As a predator, yes, are you? When you look at me, do you see prey?" Phosphoros closed his eyes briefly. "When I look at you, I see everything I've been missing. Everything I'd forgotten could exist. The fact that your blood sings to me, that I can hear your heartbeat like a drum, that your scent is the most intoxicating thing I've encountered in centuries. Yes, all of that is true. But it's not what makes me want to be near you. It's not why I've waited." "Then, why?" "Because in my vision you smiled at me. Not with fear, not with revulsion. You smiled like you saw something worth saving." His voice cracked slightly. "I've been a king, a warrior, a hunter. I've built empires and watched them crumble. But I've never been seen. Not really. Not past what I can do or what I can give. And in that moment, dying on some forgotten battlefield, I wanted nothing more than to live long enough to find the woman who could look at a monster and see something more." Luna felt tears prick her eyes. Without thinking, she closed the distance between them and took his hand. His skin was cool, but not cold, smooth and flawless. He stared down at their joined hands like she'd performed a miracle. "I'm scared," Luna admitted. "This is all so much, so fast. But I don't think you're a monster. You barely know me. I know you got me out of that restaurant before danger could reach me. I know you're giving me a choice instead of making decisions for me. I know you've been honest, even when the truth makes you vulnerable." She squeezed his hand gently. "I know that takes strength, not weakness." Phosphoros raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing up her arm. "Will you stay, tonight at least? Let me show you that not everything in my world is darkness." Luna knew she should say no, should call an Uber, go home, maybe call a therapist in the morning. But the word that came out was yes. His smile transformed his face, making him look younger, lighter. "Thank you. I promise you'll be safe here. I'll have Theron prepare a guest room." And a sharp bang echoed through the manor, the sound of splintering wood. Phosphoros's expression went from joy to fury in an instant. He pulled Luna behind him, his body a shield between her and the library door. "They've breached the gates," he said, voice tight. "Theron!" The man from earlier appeared in the doorway, his face grave. "6 of them, Your Majesty, the European faction. Seraphine is demanding an audience. She'll get more than that if she's damaged my property." Phosphoros looked back at Luna. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Theron." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done the moment she set foot in my territory. Remind her whose domain she's in." He started toward the door, then paused. "Luna, whatever you hear, don't come out. Promise me." "I promise." He and Theron disappeared into the corridor. Luna rushed to the door, locking it as instructed, then pressed her ear against the wood. For a moment there was only silence, then voices growing louder. "Insult to arrive unannounced," Phosphoros was saying, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Explain yourself, Seraphine, before I consider your presence an act of war." A woman's laugh, bright and cruel. "My dear king, we're simply concerned. You disappeared so quickly from that restaurant with a human girl. We worried something might be amiss. My personal affairs are not your concern." "Oh, but they are." When the king of North America starts keeping secrets, all of vampire kind has reason to worry. What if you're being compromised? What if this human has some hold over you? The only ones compromising anything are you and your allies, breaking into my home like common thugs. We knocked. Seraphine's voice dripped false sweetness. It's not our fault your door was so fragile. Now why don't you bring out your little pet? Let us meet her properly. Luna's heart hammered. She backed away from the door, looking around the library for anything that could be used as a weapon. A fire poker, maybe? Or one of the heavy bookends shaped like ravens. You will not speak of her. You will not look at her. You will leave my territory before dawn, or I will consider this the challenge you're clearly itching to make. Phosphoros's voice had gone cold as winter. Choose your next words very carefully, Seraphine. A challenge? How dramatic. I'm simply suggesting that a king who hides human women in his manor might not be fit to rule. That perhaps it's time for leadership with a clearer vision. One not distracted by mortal attachments. Is that so? The old council agrees. They've sent me to assess whether you've been compromised. Whether you've forgotten what we are. I've forgotten nothing. I am vampire. I am king. And you are testing my patience to the breaking point. Luna heard a crash, like furniture being overturned. She jumped, gripping the fire poker she'd retrieved. More sounds followed, glass breaking, what might have been a body hitting a wall. Then a scream, high and piercing, cut short. Silence fell, stretching out until Luna thought she might go mad. She wanted to open the door to see if Phosphoros was okay, but she'd promised to stay put. Her hands shook as she held the poker, ready to fight if Seraphine or any of the others burst through. Finally, a soft knock at the door. Luna, it's safe now. It's me. She recognized Phosphoros's voice but hesitated. How do I know it's really you? You asked if I see you as prey. I told you I see everything I've been missing. You took my hand even though you were scared. That takes strength, not weakness. Luna unlocked the door. Phosphoros stood there, looking disheveled but unharmed. His suit was torn at the shoulder, and there was something dark on his collar that might have been blood, but his eyes were clear. What happened? Luna asked. Seraphine and her faction have been reminded of the boundaries. They're leaving, are they? Alive. Humiliated and injured, but alive. Killing a dignitary would trigger a war I'd rather avoid. He stepped into the library, and Luna saw the tension in his shoulders. I'm sorry you had to hear that. This is exactly the kind of danger I was worried about. Because of me? Because of what you mean to me? Or what they think you mean to me? He ran a hand through his pale hair, frustration evident. They'll go back to the old council and report that I'm weakened by mortal attachment. Other territories will start testing boundaries, looking for weaknesses. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Luna set down the fire poker. Then maybe I should go. If I'm putting you in danger, no. The word was sharp. Luna, please. I've survived 3 centuries of vampire politics. I'm not afraid of Seraphine or the old council, but I am afraid of losing you before I've even had the chance to know you. This is crazy. We just met. A few hours ago, I didn't even believe in vampires. And now there's some ancient council concerned about me? About us, I know. It's unfair to drag you into this. He moved closer, careful and slow. Which is why I'm giving you the choice. Again, you can walk away. I'll protect you from a distance, make sure none of my enemies ever find you. Or you can stay. Let me show you my world, the beauty that exists even in darkness. Let me prove that what I feel for you is worth the risk. Luna stared at him, this vampire king who looked at her like she hung the moon. She thought about her earlier life, safe and predictable. She thought about going back to it, never knowing what might have been. Then she thought about the way he'd protected her at the restaurant. The vulnerability in his voice when he spoke of his vision, the care he'd shown even when she'd been terrified. I'll stay, Luna said. Not forever, not yet, but I need to understand this world before I make any decisions. Can you give me that? Yes, anything. Relief washed over his features. We'll go slowly. I'll answer every question. And if you change your mind at any point, you'll let me go. I know. Luna managed a shaky smile. So, Vampire King, are you going to show me the rest of this place, or do I get locked in the library all night? His answering smile was radiant. Let me show you everything. The manor was even larger than Luna had imagined. Phosphoros led her through corridors lined with centuries of collected art, through ballrooms that had hosted vampire courts, through a greenhouse where night-blooming flowers filled the air with perfume. He showed her the portraits of his vampire family, explaining the complicated web of alliances and bloodlines that made up vampire society. This is Casimir, my second in command. He's been with me since the beginning, since I was first turned. Phosphoros pointed to a painting of a stern-faced man with the same pale hair and luminous eyes. He's in Europe currently, managing some territorial disputes. You'll meet him eventually. You were turned? So you weren't born a vampire? No one is. We're made, not born. I was human once, nearly 400 years ago, a soldier who made the mistake of being too good at his job. His expression grew distant. A vampire lord offered me immortality in exchange for service. I accepted, thinking I'd be unbeatable. Instead, I became a pawn in games I didn't understand. But you're a king now. I killed the lord who made me and took his territory, then expanded it. Then spent 200 years consolidating power until even the old council had to acknowledge my rule. He said it matter-of-factly, but Luna heard the weight beneath the words. It's not a history I'm proud of. I've done terrible things to get where I am, and now I try to do better, to be better. It's not redemption, there's no redemption for what I am, but it's something. Luna stopped in front of a large window overlooking the gardens. The moon hung full and bright, silvering everything it touched. Earlier you said vampires degrade into monsters without blood. What did you mean? Phosphoros came to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the coolness radiating from his skin. We call them the lost ones. Vampires who go too long without feeding, or who've been driven mad by centuries of isolation or grief. They lose their humanity, their reason. They become nothing but hunger. We hunt them when we find them, put them down before they can harm humans. That could happen to you? If I stopped feeding, yes. But I'm in no danger of that. He glanced at her. You're wondering if I've killed humans? The answer is yes. Many, especially in my early years, I told myself it was necessary, that humans were lesser. But that was the monster talking, not the man I'd been. When did you stop? About a century ago, I realized I was becoming exactly what I'd feared, a lord who saw humans as resources rather than people. So I changed the laws in my territory. No killing, no trauma. We have human donors now, willing participants who are compensated and cared for. It's not perfect, but it's better. Luna absorbed this, trying to reconcile the violence of his past with the careful consideration he'd shown her. You could compel me, couldn't you? Make me do whatever you wanted? Yes, but I won't. Compulsion is manipulation, and I have enough sins without adding that. He turned to face her fully. Luna, I need you to understand something. Whatever happens between us, it will be your choice. Always. I've spent lifetimes having power over others. I don't want that with you. What do you want? To know you, to earn your trust, to see if the woman from my vision is even better than I imagined. His hand reached out, hovering near her cheek. May I? Luna nodded, and his cool fingers brushed her skin, gentle as a whisper. She shivered, but not from cold. There was something electric in his touch, something that made her heart race and her thoughts scatter. Your warmth, Phosphoros murmured. I'd forgotten how warm humans are. You're not that cold. Just cool, like marble, like moonlight, Luna corrected, and watched his eyes widen slightly. I'm still processing all this, the vampires, the danger, but I don't want to run. Not yet. What do you want? To keep talking? To understand? She paused. To see if what I'm feeling is real or just adrenaline from the strangest night of my life. And what are you feeling? Luna considered lying, playing it safe. But something about the vulnerability in his expression made her brave. Like I've been sleepwalking and just woke up. Like every safe, ordinary choice I've made has been building toward this moment. Like I should be terrified, but instead I'm just curious. And maybe a little excited. Excited about dating a vampire king? A hint of humor colored his voice. About dating someone who looks at me like I'm his salvation. Luna smiled. That's a lot of pressure, but it's also kind of incredible. You are incredible, and I promise, I'll do everything in my power to make sure you don't regret taking this chance. They stood there in the moonlight, not quite touching but not quite separate either, and Luna felt the weight of the choice settling around her. This wasn't going to be simple. There would be danger, politics, the strangeness of loving someone who wasn't human, but there would also be this. The feeling of being seen completely, of mattering in a way she'd never experienced before. Can I ask something potentially awkward? Luna said. Anything. The donor thing. The people who give you blood. How does that work? Phosphoros's expression grew careful. We have several trusted donors who come to the manor on rotation. They're screened for health, compensated generously, and the feeding is done as clinically as possible, typically from the wrist or inside of the elbow. There's some intimacy inherent in the act. Our bite releases endorphins that make it pleasant, but we maintain boundaries. Do you have someone you feed from regularly? Yes, his name is Marcus. He's been donating for about 5 years. It's a business arrangement, nothing more. Luna nodded slowly. And if this becomes something serious between us, would you still need other donors? That's complicated. A vampire can survive on one donor if that donor is willing to provide enough blood regularly. But it's risky. Taking too much from one person can harm them. Most of us maintain multiple donors to spread out the need. He studied her face. Are you asking if I'd want to feed from you? I don't know what I'm asking. Just trying to understand how this would work. If you ever wanted to offer, I'd be honored. But I'd never ask or expect it. Your blood would be." He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Transcendent. I can tell just from being near you. But you're not a resource to me, Luna. You're so much more than that. What if I wanted to?" "Not now," she added quickly. "But eventually. Would it hurt?" "No, there's a moment of sharpness when the fangs pierce skin, but after that, the endorphins take over. It's been described as euphoric." His voice dropped lower. "And for the vampire, feeding from someone they care about is one of the most intimate acts possible. It's trust and vulnerability and connection all at once." Heat flooded Luna's cheeks. The way he spoke about it, the intensity in his gaze, made it clear this was about more than just sustenance. This was about something deeper, more primal. "I need time," she said quietly, "to think about all of this. Of course, I've rushed you too much already." Phosphoros stepped back, giving her space. "Let me show you to your room. You must be exhausted." He led her upstairs to a bedroom that looked like something from a period drama. 4-poster bed, velvet curtains, antique furniture that probably cost more than her car. But there were modern touches too: a flat-screen TV hidden in an armoire, a Bluetooth speaker on the nightstand, a door leading to a luxurious bathroom. "There are clothes in the closet that should fit," Phosphoros said. "And anything you need, just press the intercom button by the bed. Theron will respond immediately." "Where will you be?" "Close by. I won't leave the manor while you're here." He hesitated at the door. "Luna, thank you for staying, for listening, for not running screaming into the night." "The night's not over yet," Luna teased, then softened. "But you're welcome. See you in the morning?" Something flickered across his face. "I'll be awake, but I can't go outside until after sunset. Will you stay through tomorrow evening? I need to go home at some point. I have school Monday, and my friend Petra is probably freaking out wondering what happened to me." "Petra knows you're safe. I had Theron send her a message. But I understand about your work. Perhaps I could have Theron drive you home tomorrow, and then I could visit after sunset if you're willing." Luna smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." After he left, she explored the room more thoroughly, finding designer clothes in her exact size in the closet, expensive toiletries in the bathroom, even a phone charger that fit her device. It was like Phosphoros had been preparing for her arrival, or maybe he just kept a range of options available. Given his resources, both seemed equally likely. She showered, washing away the strangeness of the evening, then changed into silk pajamas that felt like sin against her skin. The bed was impossibly comfortable, but sleep evaded her. Her mind kept replaying everything: the restaurant, Seraphine's threats, the feel of Phosphoros's cool fingers against her cheek, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious. Luna pulled out her phone and found a dozen texts from Petra. Did you meet him? Well? OMG, you're with him, aren't you? Just had his assistant text Maluna Marie Brennan. You better tell me everything tomorrow." Luna typed back. "I'm fine. He's something else. We need to talk about everything." Petra's response was immediate despite the late hour. "Figured you'd have questions. I'll explain what I can, but he's been waiting for someone like you for a very long time. Be kind to him." Luna stared at that message, then typed, "You knew what he was." "That he was a vampire, yeah. My dad is one of his advisors. I grew up around this world. When P asked if I knew anyone who might understand him, who might see past the fangs, I thought of you." "Why me?" "Because you're good, like genuinely good. And you don't judge people based on what they are. You judge them on what they do." Luna set down the phone, overwhelmed. She'd thought tonight was just a regular blind date. Instead, she'd been set up with a vampire king by someone who'd been keeping a massive secret for their entire friendship. She should be angry, should feel betrayed. But mostly she just felt curious. And maybe a little bit like her life had finally gotten interesting. Sleep claimed her eventually, pulling her into dreams of silver eyes and moonlight, and a voice promising centuries of devotion. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of fresh coffee. A tray sat on the bedside table. Coffee, pastries, fresh fruit, and a note in elegant handwriting. "Good morning. I hope you slept well. The clothes in the closet are yours to keep. Theron will drive you home whenever you're ready, but I hope you'll join me in the East Wing before you go. I'll be awake, just confined indoors." Top of the stairs, third door on the left. Luna ate breakfast slowly, trying to organize her thoughts. In the daylight, everything seemed more surreal. Had she really spent last night in a vampire's manor? Had she really agreed to see him again? She dressed in jeans and a soft sweater from the closet, both fitting perfectly, and made her way to the East Wing. The door Phosphoros had indicated was slightly ajar. She knocked softly. "Come in." The room was dark, heavy curtains drawn against the sun. It took Luna's eyes a moment to adjust. When they did, she saw it was some kind of study. Desk covered in paperwork, bookshelves packed with titles in multiple languages, a leather sofa near a cold fireplace. Phosphoros sat at the desk, looking tired in a way that seemed more than physical. "Sorry about the darkness," he said. "Even indirect sunlight is uncomfortable." "It's fine." Luna moved into the room, closing the door behind her. "How are you? After last night, I mean." Annoyed that Seraphine chose to be difficult, but otherwise well. "I've been handling some damage control this morning. Making calls, reinforcing alliances. The usual political theater." He gestured to a chair across from the desk. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected, considering." Luna sat, studying him in the dimness. He looked the same as last night. Inhumanly beautiful, composed, pale as marble. But there was a weariness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Are you in trouble because of me?" "I'm in the same trouble I've been in for decades. Seraphine and the old council want to see me fail. You've simply given them a new angle to exploit." He leaned back in his chair. "But I've weathered worse storms. This is nothing I can't handle." "You keep saying that, but what if it's not? What if I become a liability? Then I'll deal with it." "Luna, I've been making impossible choices for centuries. Weighing risk versus reward is second nature. And you?" His expression softened. "You're worth every risk." Luna's heart did a complicated flip. "We barely know each other, I know. Which is why I'm hoping you'll let me get to know you better. Properly. Not in the midst of crisis, but in the everyday moments." He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, closer to her. "I want to know your favorite book, what makes you laugh, how you take your coffee. I want to hear about your students and your family, and what you dream about. I want to know everything." "That's a lot of pressure for a second date. Then let's start small. Favorite color?" Luna couldn't help but smile. "Green. Like forest green, not lime. Yours silver. Like moonlight on water. Favorite food?" "Chocolate, dark chocolate." "But I guess that's something you can't share." "No, but I remember what it tasted like. Sweet and bitter at once." His eyes held hers. "What made you become a teacher?" "My third-grade teacher, Mrs. Chen. She was the first person who made me feel like my ideas mattered. Like I was smart enough to do anything. I wanted to be that for other kids." Luna tucked her legs under her. "What made you want to be king? Or was that just survival?" "Both. I was tired of being powerless. Of following orders from vampires who saw humans as cattle and young vampires as expendable. I thought if I had enough power I could change things. Make them better." He paused. "I'm not sure I succeeded, but I'm still trying." They talked for hours. Luna learned about his human life, a soldier in the Austrian army. Born in a small village he could barely remember. She learned about his turning, the decades of violence that followed, the slow realization that immortality without purpose was its own kind of death. He learned about her childhood, her love of books, the way she'd always felt like she was waiting for something without knowing what. "I used to drive my parents crazy," Luna admitted. "Always staring out windows, always restless. My mom thought I had ADHD. But it wasn't that. It was more like I knew there was something more, something waiting for me to be brave enough to find it." "And is this it?" Phosphoros asked quietly. "Am I what you were waiting for?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I was waiting to be brave enough to say yes to something terrifying." She met his gaze. "Ask me again in a month. A month. I can work with that." He checked an ornate clock on the wall. "You probably need to get home. I've kept you long enough." Luna realized with surprise that it was mid-afternoon. She'd been in his study for almost 5 hours, and it had felt like minutes. "Yeah, I should. But I'll see you tonight? If you'll have me, I could bring dinner. Real food for you. And we could talk more." "I'd like that." Theron drove her home in the same sleek car from last night, remaining professionally silent throughout the journey. Luna's apartment felt small and shabby after the manor, but it was comfortingly familiar. She checked her phone and found more messages from Petra demanding details, a few work emails, and a reminder about her dentist appointment next week. Normal life waiting to resume. But Luna didn't feel normal anymore. She felt changed, stretched, like something inside her had been sleeping and was now startlingly awake. She called Petra. "Finally," her friend answered. "I've been dying. Tell me everything. Did you freak out? Did he tell you what he is? Are you okay?" Yes, and I think so." Luna flopped onto her couch. "Petra, why didn't you warn me? Would you have gone if I'd said, 'Hey, I'm setting you up with a vampire king'?" "No, probably not. Definitely not. Exactly. You needed to meet him first. See that he's not a monster. He's just different, and Luna, he's been so lonely. I've known him since I was a kid, and I've never seen him care about anything the way he lit up when I said I might know someone for him." Luna closed her eyes. "This is insane. I should be running. Instead, I'm sitting here waiting for sunset so he can come over with dinner." "You like him. I don't know him well enough to like him. But I like who I am when I'm with him. I like that he makes me feel brave." She paused. "Is this crazy?" Be honest, it's crazy, Petra agreed. But maybe good crazy. Maybe the kind of crazy that turns into something amazing. Just be careful. The vampire world is complicated, and there are a lot of beings who'd love to hurt him by hurting you. He said the same thing, because it's true. But he'll protect you, and so will his people. You're not alone in this. After hanging up, Luna showered again and changed into clean clothes, trying to prepare mentally for whatever came next. She straightened her apartment, which was a losing battle given its perpetual clutter. She checked her lesson plans for Monday, grounded herself in the familiar routine of her work. The sun set slowly, painting her windows gold and then crimson. Luna watched it go, knowing that somewhere in the city Phosphoros was waking properly, preparing to see her again. The knock came at 8 o'clock exactly. Luna opened the door to find him standing there with bags of takeout, dressed more casually than last night in dark jeans and a black shirt. He still looked otherworldly but more approachable. "Hi," he said and smiled. "Hi, come in." He entered her small apartment carefully, as if afraid he might break something. His eyes swept over the space. Her bookshelves crammed with novels, the photos on the walls, her grading pile on the coffee table. "It's not much," Luna said, suddenly self-conscious. "It's you, I love it." He set the bags on her small dining table. "I got Thai. I hope that's okay. I wasn't sure what you liked, so I got several options." They ate well. Luna ate while Phosphoros watched, asking questions about her favorite dishes and committing every answer to memory. It should have been awkward, but instead it felt intimate, this small domestic moment between them. "Can I ask you something?" Luna said around a bite of pad thai. "Last night you said you had a vision when you were dying. Do vampires normally get visions?" "No, that's unusual, even for us. I've spent centuries trying to understand what it meant. Some of my advisors think it was a gift from whatever power governs our existence. Others think it was a hallucination brought on by blood loss and a blessed blade." He leaned back in his chair. "I prefer to think it was hope manifesting when I needed it most. And you really waited all this time? Never found someone else?" "I've had companions over the years. Other vampires, the occasional human who knew what I was. But nothing that lasted. Nothing that felt right." His eyes held hers. "Until you." Luna set down her fork, her appetite fading under the intensity of his gaze. "What if I'm not what you hoped for? What if I disappoint you?" "Impossible. I'm serious. You've built me up in your mind for 300 years. No real person can compete with that." Phosphoros considered this. "You're right that I've idealized you. The woman in my vision was more dream than reality. But Luna, the real you is so much better than any dream. You're funny and kind and brave enough to sit here having dinner with a vampire instead of running away screaming. You ask difficult questions and expect honest answers. You see me as a person, not just a king or a monster." He reached across the table, palm up. "I'm not disappointed, I'm amazed." Luna took his hand, feeling that same electric connection from last night. "I'm still scared of what you are, of what this might become. But I'm also more interested than I've been in anything in years. So maybe we can figure this out together?" "I'd like that very much." They spent the evening on her couch, Luna curled against his side despite the coolness of his skin. They watched a movie neither of them paid much attention to, too busy talking. Phosphoros asked about her students, and Luna found herself telling stories about 8-year-olds with more enthusiasm than she'd expected. He told her about the early days of his rule, the mistakes he'd made, the lessons learned through centuries of trial and error. "Do you ever regret it?" Luna asked. "Becoming a vampire, sometimes I miss the sun. I miss eating. I miss the simplicity of mortality, the way each moment felt precious because there were so few of them." He played with a strand of her hair absently. "But I don't think I'd give it up even if I could. This life has given me time to grow, to learn, to become someone better than the soldier I was. And it gave me the chance to meet you. Smooth talker, truth teller. There's a difference." As midnight approached, Phosphoros reluctantly said he should leave. "You have work tomorrow, and I've already stolen too much of your time." Luna walked him to the door but caught his hand before he could leave. "Thank you. For dinner, for talking, for being patient with all my questions. Thank you for giving me a chance. For seeing past what I am to who I'm trying to be." He raised her hand to his lips again. That same gesture from last night. "May I see you again tomorrow evening?" "You better. I'm going to have more questions. I'm counting on it." He left, and Luna locked the door behind him, leaning against it with a smile she couldn't quite suppress. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was the most alive she'd felt in years. She went to bed thinking about silver eyes and cool hands, and a voice that promised forever if she was brave enough to reach for it. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Luna would teach during the day, Phosphoros would handle vampire politics and business after sunset, and they'd spend their evenings together. Sometimes at her apartment, sometimes at his manor, once at a late-night art gallery opening where Luna met some of his vampire allies and tried not to stare at their otherworldly beauty. She learned the rhythms of his world, the careful hierarchy, the blood politics, the way power shifted with every challenge and alliance. She met Theron properly and discovered he'd been Phosphoros's friend since the early days, loyal and steady. She learned about the donor system, even met Marcus, who was surprisingly normal for someone who regularly fed vampires. It's not that weird once you get used to it, Marcus told her over coffee at the manor one evening. And the money is great, plus Phosphoros is one of the good ones. Some vampires treat donors like food, he actually cares. Luna found herself caring too. About Phosphoros, about his strange world, about the way he looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. They hadn't kissed yet, hadn't moved past hand-holding and the occasional embrace, but the tension between them grew with every shared evening, every lingering touch. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Seraphine returned. Luna was at the manor, helping Phosphoros sort through some historical documents for a treaty negotiation, when Theron appeared in the study doorway looking grim. "Sire, the European delegation has requested a formal audience. They're at the gate." Phosphoros's jaw tightened. "How many?" 12, including Seraphine and someone claiming to be an old council representative. "Let them in. Set up the throne room." He looked at Luna. "I'm sorry, I need to handle this. Can I watch?" Luna asked. "I mean, if it's allowed, I want to understand how this works." He looked conflicted. "It could be dangerous. They might use your presence to undermine me. Or I could stand there and show them I'm not some shameful secret, that you're not weakened by caring about a human." Luna stood, squaring her shoulders. "Let me be part of this." Pride flickered in his eyes. "If you're sure." "I'm sure." The throne room was exactly as dramatic as Luna had imagined. Soaring ceilings, dark stone walls, and at the far end, an actual throne carved from black marble. Phosphoros sat in it with the ease of long practice, and Luna stood at his right hand, Theron at his left. Other vampires filed in, members of Phosphoros's court, all pale and beautiful and quietly dangerous. When Seraphine entered, she wasn't alone. The vampires with her were all ancient. Luna could tell by the weight they carried, the way even Phosphoros's court members straightened with wary respect. And at the center walked a woman who made Seraphine look young. Bone-white hair, eyes like chips of ice, wearing robes that belonged in a different century. "Lady Morgantha," Phosphoros said, his voice carefully neutral. "This is unexpected, is it?" The ancient vampire's voice was winter frost. "When rumors reach the old council that one of our kings has been compromised by mortal attachment, we investigate. That is our purpose. I am not compromised. My territory is stable, my laws enforced, my alliance is strong. Yet you keep a human girl at your side, in your home, involving her in vampire business." Morgantha's cold gaze swept over Luna. "Tell me, child, what do you think you're doing here?" Luna's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "Supporting someone I care about." How sweet, how naive. Morgantha moved closer and Luna had to fight the urge to step back. "Do you know what you are to him? To us, you're a weakness, a vulnerability. Every enemy he has will target you to get to him." "I know. And yet you stay?" "Yes. Why?" Luna glanced at Phosphoros, who was watching her with barely concealed tension. Then she looked back at the ancient vampire before her. "Because he's worth it. Because what we have is worth the risk." "What you have," Morgantha repeated mockingly. "You've known him a few weeks. You think that compares to centuries of existence?" "No, but it doesn't have to. Love isn't a competition." The word hung in the air. Love. Luna hadn't meant to say it, hadn't fully acknowledged the feeling even to herself. But now it was out there, and Phosphoros was staring at her with something like wonder. Morgantha laughed, sharp and cruel. "Love. The child speaks of love." She turned to Phosphoros. "Is this true? Have you fallen for a mortal?" "Yes." Phosphoros stood, moving to place himself between Morgantha and Luna. "I love her, and I will not apologize for it or hide it to satisfy the council's outdated prejudices." "Outdated?" Morgantha's voice went dangerously soft. "Those prejudices kept our kind hidden for millennia, kept us safe from discovery and persecution. And you would throw that away for a human who will be dust in a few decades." "I would throw away every title and alliance I have for her," Phosphoros said quietly. "If it came to that choice, I wouldn't hesitate." The room went silent. Even Seraphine looked shocked. Morgantha studied Phosphoros for a long moment. "You realize what you're saying? That you'd choose mortality over your crown?" "I'm saying I'd choose Luna over everything. The crown, my territory, even my immortality if such a thing were possible. It's not, I know. Which is why I'm begging you to accept this, to let me have this one thing that makes eternity bearable." The ancient vampire's expression was unreadable. Finally, she said, "The council has a proposition. We will accept your attachment on 3 conditions. Name them. First, the girl must be protected. If she is killed because of her connection to you, it will be seen as proof that human attachments make us vulnerable. You will provide her with guards, safety measures, whatever is necessary. Second, she must be educated in our ways. She cannot be part of your world without understanding it fully. The laws, the history, the dangers. No more sheltering her. I agree. Third, Morgantha's eyes glittered. If this attachment compromises your ability to rule, if your territory falls to chaos because you're distracted by mortal concerns, you will step down peacefully, and you will not choose a successor who shares your progressive views. Phosphoros was quiet for a long moment. Finally, I accept your terms. Then the old council recognizes your right to this attachment. But know this, Phosphoros Erebus, we will be watching. And if you fail, the consequences will be severe. Morgantha turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The girl spoke of love. Do you intend to turn her? Luna's breath caught. She and Phosphoros hadn't discussed that possibility, hadn't even touched on the topic. That would be her choice, Phosphoros said carefully. Not mine to make. But be aware, a turned human loses many of the qualities that made them appealing in the first place. Their humanity, their warmth, their mortality. You may find you've destroyed the very thing you love. With that parting shot, Morgantha swept from the room, her entourage following. When they were gone, Phosphoros turned to Luna. I'm sorry. I didn't expect them to push that hard. You said you'd give up everything for me. I meant it. That's insane. You'd really walk away from being king in a heartbeat. He took her hands, pulling her close. Luna, these last few weeks have been the happiest of my existence. You make me feel human again, alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Compared to that, the crown is just a burden I've carried too long. Luna's eyes stung with tears. I love you too. I didn't mean to say it in front of everyone, but it's true. I love you. He cupped her face with both hands, his touch cool and gentle. May I kiss you? I've been wanting to for weeks, but I wanted to wait until you were ready. I'm ready. His lips met hers, cool and soft, and Luna felt something inside her click into place. This was right. Despite the danger, despite the impossibility, despite every logical reason to run away, this felt more right than anything she'd ever experienced. She kissed him back, threading her fingers through his pale hair, and felt him shudder against her. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless for different reasons, Phosphoros rested his forehead against hers. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. For being brave enough to love me. For making eternity feel like a gift instead of a curse. Thank you for waiting, Luna whispered. For centuries, for me. They stood there in the throne room, wrapped in each other, while around them the vampire court quietly dispersed to give them privacy. Theron caught Luna's eye and gave her a small, approving nod before he left. Over the next few months, Luna's life transformed. She kept teaching something Phosphoros insisted on, saying she needed to maintain her own identity, but her evenings and nights belonged to their strange new world. She studied vampire history with scholars who'd lived through the events they described. She learned self-defense from Theron, who was surprisingly patient with her human limitations. She met vampires from across Phosphoros's territory, learning the complex web of alliances and enmities that kept their society functioning, and she fell deeper in love. Phosphoros courted her with the patience of someone who had all the time in the world. He brought her rare books from his collection, took her to private concerts after midnight, showed her hidden parts of the city that only came alive after dark. He listened to her talk about her students, her dreams, her fears. He held her while she cried about the dangers she'd brought into her parents' lives just by association, and he moved heaven and earth to ensure they were protected without ever knowing why. The question of turning hung between them, unspoken but present. Luna knew it was coming. She could feel it in the way Phosphoros sometimes watched her, in the sadness that crept into his eyes when she mentioned growing older. Finally, on a cold December evening 6 months after their first meeting, Luna brought it up. They were at the manor, in his private quarters, Luna curled up in his lap while snow fell outside the windows. She'd been quiet all evening, thinking. I'm going to die someday, she said without preamble. Phosphoros's arms tightened around her. Not for a very long time if I have any say in it. But I will, and you won't. You'll still be exactly like this 100 years from now, while I'm dust. She tilted her head to look up at him. Have you thought about turning me? Every day. His voice was raw. Every single day since I met you. But Morgantha was right. Turning changes people. You'd lose your warmth, your ability to go out in daylight, the simple pleasure of eating food. You'd become a predator, no matter how much you fought it. And I don't know if I could forgive myself for taking that from you. What if I want it? What if I think being with you forever is worth those sacrifices? You're young, Luna. You have so much life ahead of you. Don't. She sat up, turning to face him properly. Don't dismiss my feelings because I'm young. I know what I want. I've known for months. And what I want is forever with you. You might change your mind. I might. Which is why I'm not asking you to turn me tomorrow. But eventually, yes, I want that. She took his hands. I want to stand beside you. Not as a human you're protecting, but as your equal. Your partner. I want forever, Phosphoros. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were bright with unshed tears. You don't know what you're asking. Then teach me. Show me what it really means. Introduce me to vampires who regret being turned, who miss their humanity. Let me make an informed decision. Luna squeezed his hands. But don't decide for me. That's the one thing I won't accept. You're so brave, he murmured. Braver than I ever was. I learned from the best. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, and Luna tasted forever in it. The next few months were dedicated to education. Phosphoros introduced her to vampires across the spectrum. Those who loved their immortality, those who hated it, those who'd found peace with it. Luna listened to stories of transformation, of the pain of changing, of the years it took to adjust. She learned about blood hunger, about the way sunlight burned, about the loneliness of watching everyone you'd known as a human die while you remained unchanging. And through it all, she became more certain. She loved her humanity, yes. But she loved Phosphoros more. And the thought of leaving him, of dying while he went on alone, was unbearable. On a spring evening nearly a year after they'd met, Luna made her decision final. I want you to turn me, she told him. They were in the garden at the manor, surrounded by night-blooming flowers. I've thought about it from every angle, talked to dozens of vampires, and I'm sure I want forever with you. Phosphoros had been expecting this, she could tell. But still he looked pained. There's no going back once it's done, I know. You'll outlive everyone you know, your parents, your friends, your students, I know. And that will hurt. But living without you would hurt more. Luna, no more arguments. No more trying to protect me from my own choices. She moved closer, cupping his face. I love you. I want this. Make me yours, Phosphoros. Make me your equal, your forever. He searched her face for a long moment. Then finally he nodded. Not tonight. There are preparations to make, rituals to follow. But soon, if you're truly sure, I'm sure, then I'll begin the arrangements. The turning must be done properly, with support and safety measures in place. It will take a few weeks to prepare. He pulled her into his arms. I love you so much that it terrifies me. But if this is what you want, I'll give it to you. It's what I want. The preparations were extensive. Phosphoros explained that the turning was a 3-day process, the draining of human blood, the feeding of vampire blood, and the death and rebirth that followed. It was dangerous. Some humans didn't survive the transition. But with proper care and monitoring, the risks were minimized. Luna took a leave of absence from school, citing family emergency. She said goodbye to her parents without explaining what was really happening, hugging them tight and memorizing their warmth. She wrote letters to be delivered after her turning, explaining where she'd gone and why, asking for understanding even though she knew it might not come. Petra was the only one who knew the full truth. Are you really doing this? Her friend asked over their last lunch together before the turning. Yes. You know you'll lose almost everything about your old life. I'll gain something better. Forever with someone who sees me completely. Luna smiled. I'm not scared, Petra. I'm excited. Then I'm happy for you. And I'll be here on the other side to help you adjust. Petra hugged her tight. You're so brave, Luna. Don't ever forget that. The night of the turning, Luna dressed in white as tradition dictated. She met Phosphoros in a private chamber deep in the manor, a room set up like a bedroom but with medical equipment standing by. Theron was there, along with a vampire healer named Isolde who would monitor the process. Last chance to change your mind, Phosphoros said quietly. Not changing it. Luna took his hand. I'm ready. The first stage was almost gentle. Luna lay on the bed while Phosphoros fed from her wrist, his bite sending waves of pleasure through her system despite the circumstances. She grew weaker, sleepier, as he drained her blood carefully, monitored by Isolde to ensure he stopped before her heart failed. When he pulled away, his lips stained crimson, he looked devastated. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be. This is what I want. Luna's voice was barely a whisper. Her body too weak to move, the second stage followed immediately. Phosphoros bit his own wrist, opening a vein, and pressed it to Luna's lips. Drink. You need to drink as much as you can. The blood was strange, cool and metallic, but somehow right. Luna drank deeply, feeling it burn down her throat and into her stomach. Power flooded her system, mixing with the weakness, creating a strange dissonance. That's enough, Isolde said finally. Now we wait. The death happened slowly over the next 2 days. Luna's human body shut down bit by bit, her heartbeat slowing, her breathing becoming shallow. She drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes aware of Phosphoros holding her hand, sometimes lost in fever dreams. On the third day she woke to darkness and pain. Everything hurt. Her skin, her bones, her teeth. She was so thirsty, desperately thirsty, craving something she couldn't name. Luna tried to sit up and move too fast, suddenly finding herself across the room with no memory of getting there. "Luna?" Phosphoros's voice, careful and worried. "Can you hear me?" She turned toward him, and the world exploded into too much sensation. She could hear everything, hearts beating, blood flowing, whispered conversations 3 floors away. She could smell everything, copper and fear and the cold stone of the manor, and she could see perfectly in the dark, every detail crystal clear. "What's happening?" Her voice came out wrong, strange. "You're transitioning, your vampire senses are developing. It will be overwhelming at first, but you'll learn to control it." He stayed where he was, not approaching. "How do you feel?" "Thirsty, so thirsty." "I know. Theron has blood ready for you. But Luna, you need to stay calm. The first feeding can be intense." She heard the heartbeat then, Theron entering the room with a medical bag of blood. The sound of it, the smell, nearly drove her mad. Luna lunged toward him, moving with that same impossible speed, and suddenly Phosphoros was between them, holding her back. "I know it's hard," he said gently. "But you're stronger than the hunger. You can control this." Luna shook, fighting against instincts she'd never had before. The need to feed, to hunt, to drain was overwhelming. But underneath it she heard Phosphoros's voice, felt his cool hands on her shoulders, and slowly the frenzy receded. "Good," he murmured. "So good. Now, let's feed you properly." Theron set up the blood bag with an IV line, and Luna drank from it greedily. The blood was cool, not warm like she'd expected, but it was enough. The desperate thirst eased, and with it some of the overwhelming sensory input faded to manageable levels. She looked at her hands and saw they were pale, the veins visible beneath skin that looked like porcelain. When she touched her teeth, she felt the fangs, sharp and foreign. "I'm a vampire," Luna whispered. "You are." Phosphoros moved closer now that the initial frenzy had passed. "How do you feel?" "Strange, powerful, like I could run through walls." She looked up at him, seeing him clearly for the first time with vampire eyes. He was even more beautiful than before, every detail perfect. "You're beautiful, so are you. Luna, you're stunning." She caught her reflection in a mirror across the room. Her hair was darker somehow, her skin pale as moonlight, her eyes that same luminous silver gray she'd seen in every vampire she'd met. She looked like she belonged to his world now. "No turning back," Luna said. "No turning back," Phosphoros agreed. "Are you sorry?" She turned to him, her vampire speed making the movement too fast but thrilling. "Not even a little bit." The smile that crossed his face was radiant with relief and joy. "Welcome to forever, Luna Brennan." "Forever with you," she corrected and kissed him. The adjustment period was difficult. Luna had to learn to control her new strength, her new speed, her new senses. She accidentally broke furniture, moved too fast and made herself dizzy, heard conversations she wasn't meant to hear. But Phosphoros was patient, and Theron proved to be an excellent teacher. And slowly she adapted. The hardest part was saying goodbye to her old life. Her parents received her letter and tried to find her, but Phosphoros had covered their tracks well. Luna watched from a distance as they mourned, and it broke her heart. But she'd left instructions for money to be transferred to them, supposedly from a life insurance policy. And over time their grief faded to acceptance. Her teaching career was over, but Luna found new purpose. She became involved in Phosphoros's court, using her fresh perspective to suggest policy changes. She advocated for better treatment of donors, for more progressive laws regarding human-vampire interaction. And slowly, grudgingly, the older vampires began to respect her. She still attended Petra's birthday dinners with her family. Now as a vampire, though Petra's father, a vampire himself, gave her knowing looks. She built friendships with other vampires, learned the intricate dance of immortal politics, and every night she fell asleep in Phosphoros's arms, grateful for the choice she'd made. A year after her turning, the old council summoned them to Europe for a formal evaluation. Morgantha wanted to see if Phosphoros's rule had suffered from his attachment to Luna, or if he'd managed to balance love and power. They traveled together, Luna seeing parts of the world she'd only dreamed of. The council met in an ancient castle in Romania, and Luna stood beside Phosphoros as he reported on his territory. Stable, prosperous, with crime down and human-vampire relations better than ever. Morgantha studied Luna with those cold eyes. "You chose this life freely? No compulsion, no coercion?" "Freely," Luna confirmed. "It was the best decision I've ever made, and you don't resent what you've lost, your humanity, your family, your mortality. I miss parts of it, but I gained something irreplaceable. Forever with the person I love and the chance to make a real difference in this world." Luna met the ancient vampire's gaze steadily. "I regret nothing." Morgantha was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Perhaps there is hope for our kind after all. Phosphoros Erebus, your territory is judged stable. Your rule continues with the council's blessing. And your attachment, she glanced at Luna, is acknowledged as strength rather than weakness. You've proven love doesn't have to mean ruin. Relief flooded Phosphoros's features. Thank you, Lady Morgantha. Don't thank me yet. You've set a precedent. Other vampires will follow your example, and some of those bonds will end badly. You'll be responsible for dealing with the fallout. I accept that responsibility. Then go. Rule well and take care of that brave woman beside you. She's quite remarkable. They left Europe hand in hand, Luna laughing with the pure joy of it. They'd done it. They'd proven that love and immortality could coexist, that vampires and humans could build something real and lasting together. What are you thinking? Phosphoros asked as they walked through the castle gardens under moonlight. That I waited my whole life without knowing what for, Luna said. And it was you. It was always you. I waited centuries. You're worth every moment. What do we do now? We have forever ahead of us. Whatever we want. We could travel, explore the world. We could build something new in the territory, change the laws even more. We could just exist together, taking each moment as it comes. He pulled her close. As long as I'm with you, I don't care what we do. I love you. Luna said, the words still feeling new and precious. I love you. For all the centuries I waited, for all the centuries to come. He kissed her deep and slow under the ancient stars. They returned home to the manor, to their life together. Luna continued her advocacy work, slowly transforming vampire society from within. Phosphoros ruled with wisdom earned through centuries, now tempered by love. They faced challenges, rival territories, political intrigue, the occasional vampire who refused to accept the new order. But they faced it together, equal partners in every way. Some nights when the manor was quiet and they were alone in their chambers, Luna would trace the ring Phosphoros had given her after her turning. It was silver, set with a moonstone and engraved with words in an ancient language that translated to forever found. Do you ever regret it? She asked him once. Waiting so long for me? Never. You were worth every lonely year, every empty century. He kissed her forehead. You made me believe in love again, Luna. You gave my immortality meaning, you gave me forever. We gave each other everything, and it was true. In a world of darkness and danger, they'd found light in each other. In centuries of loneliness, they'd found home. And in the impossible space between human and vampire, mortal and immortal, they'd found a love that transcended all boundaries. Years became decades, though time meant less to them now. They watched the world change, adapted to new technologies and new attitudes. The vampire world slowly evolved, influenced by the precedent they'd set. More human-vampire bonds formed, more progressive policies were enacted. The old order gave way to something new, something better. Luna's parents eventually passed, and she mourned them properly, grateful for the time she'd had. But she had eternity ahead, and Phosphoros beside her, and that made even grief bearable. On a crisp autumn evening exactly 10 years after their first meeting, they returned to the restaurant where it had all begun. It had changed ownership, been remodeled, but Luna could still remember sitting across from the strange pale man who wouldn't eat, who'd looked at her like she was his salvation. I was so confused that night, Luna said, smiling at the memory. So was I, terrified that you'd run, that I'd scare you away, terrified that you'd be disappointed, that you wouldn't be the woman from my vision. And was I what you expected? Phosphoros took her hand across the table. You were so much better, you still are, every night. You surprise me, challenge me, make me better than I was. I waited 300 years for you, and I'd wait 300 more for just one more night by your side. Good thing you don't have to wait, Luna teased. You're stuck with me forever now. Forever sounds perfect. They left the restaurant hand in hand, stepping out into the night that belonged to them. Above, the moon hung full and bright, silvering the city streets. Around them, the world rushed on, humans going about their lives, never knowing that vampires walked among them. Never knowing that one vampire king and his beloved had changed everything by daring to choose love. Luna looked at Phosphoros, at the man the vampire who'd waited centuries for her, who'd given up nothing less than everything to keep her. She thought about the scared teacher who'd gone on a blind date a decade ago, never imagining where it would lead. And she thought about forever stretching ahead, infinite nights with infinite possibilities. Where to now, she asked. Anywhere, everywhere, as long as I'm with you. Phosphoros pulled her close, and they stood there in the moonlight, two immortal beings wrapped in a love that had transcended time itself. The blind date who'd ordered no food and never aged had been waiting for her all along, and Luna, who'd been waiting without knowing what for, had finally found her forever. They walked into the night together, into their eternity, and the city lights sparkled like stars around them. Behind them, the restaurant faded into the past, just another chapter in a story that would never end. Ahead lay forever, strange and wonderful, dangerous and beautiful, everything they'd ever wanted and more than either had dared to dream. Luna smiled as Phosphoros kissed her temple, his cool lips familiar now, comforting. She'd given up the sun, but she'd gained the moon and stars. She'd given up mortality, but she'd gained endless time. She'd given up the ordinary life she'd planned, but she'd gained an extraordinary love that would last until the stars went dark. And in the end, that was everything. That was worth every sacrifice, every risk, every moment of fear and doubt. Because the Vampire King had waited centuries, and the teacher had finally said yes, and together they'd proven that love could conquer even time itself, forever found, forever kept, forever theirs. And they lived on, night after night, century after century, their love a beacon in the darkness, proof that even monsters could find redemption in the arms of someone brave enough to see past the fangs to the heart underneath. The story could have ended a dozen times at the restaurant, at the manor, at the turning, at the council evaluation. But their story never really ended. It just continued, expanding, deepening, becoming more beautiful with each passing year. That's the thing about forever. There's always another night, another moment, another chance to choose each other all over again. And Luna and Phosphoros chose each other, every single night, for all the nights to come. That was their happy ending. Not a conclusion, but a beginning that never stopped beginning. A love that never stopped growing, an eternity that never felt long enough because they spent it together. The Vampire King and his beloved, forever found, forever cherished, forever home.